The easiest way to deal with the drop in attraction in a relationship is to not let it happen in the first place. I know, easier said than done, but once attraction has fallen significantly, it's a much slower and more difficult process to build it back up than to maintain it in the first place, and there's no guarantee that it will go the way that you want. But the good news is that attraction in a relationship is pretty stable when a few key behaviors stay consistent. So in this video, I'm going to show you the 5 habits that keep it strong over time and even well into a long-term relationship. If you think attraction has already dropped and that's what brought you here, make sure to watch the other videos in this series, which I'll link below. My name's Max, and I help men to understand, build, and maintain attraction so that they can have the relationships that they really want. So before we get into the habits, a quick recap of why attraction might drop in a relationship. So there are 4 main reasons. The first is a mismatch in the amount of value that she perceives you to have now versus how much she perceived you to have in the dating phase. The second is a behavioral drift if you were maybe confident and charming and funny in the early stages and put a bunch of effort into the time that you're spending together, and then as the relationship progressed, that slowed down or stopped. The third is boundary erosion. That's where you've allowed her to cross your boundaries multiple times, maybe in small ways that you've allowed to slide to keep the peace, and that's gradually eroded her respect for you. And the fourth is that you've developed a supplicating, approval-seeking energy that's coming across in your tone of voice and things like that. I go into all of those in detail in the earlier videos, so once again, I'll link those below. But what I want you to notice is that the habits that I talk about in this video are basically the antidote to those reasons. So the first habit is keep being the man that you were when you met. The number of men that go from that guy to no effort as soon as they feel comfortable in the relationship is more than you would think. So there's a version of you that she said yes to in the dating stage, and that version of you had a certain amount of confidence, charm, and humor, and was putting a certain amount of effort into the time that you spent together. As much as you can, you want to keep being that person, keep flirting with her, keep dressing well, keep making the time that you spend together feel like it matters. And this doesn't mean that every moment you spend together has to be some extravagant date. It just means that your behavior towards her, as much as possible, does remind her of those early days. You continue to be the attractive person that she chose in the first place. Habit number 2 is to always keep improving yourself. Now, this might sound a little bit contradictory because I just said to keep being the man that you were before. And in relation to her, how you behave towards her, you want that to remain as close as you can manage to the standard that you set in the dating stage. But when it comes to who you are as a man in the world, your capability, your direction, your power, that always needs to be growing. If who you are as a man remains exactly the same as when she met you, her attraction will gradually fade, or at least it's a factor that could cause her attraction to fade. Whereas if your behavior towards her stays as it did in the early stages, that's a very good thing. And the improvements that you're trying to make could be pretty much anything. It could be learning a new instrument or a new language. You're working harder on your career, you're finding more ways to earn money, becoming stronger in the gym. Masculinity at its core is basically just capability and any form of it. So if you're always improving your capability as a man, your attractiveness is always improving and you develop an attractive trajectory. And that's important because women take into account who you are now, as well as who you're going to be and where you're going to be. Habit number 3 is to lead by default. And what that means is, in the time that you spend together, you as the man should always have a plan. And that doesn't mean that you both have to do what you say every time. She can have ideas too, and she can contribute to the process. But you always having a plan means that she never has to. And that matters more than it might sound. When a man shows up with a clear sense of what's happening, it gives a woman the chance to relax into the experience. She doesn't have to organize, she doesn't have to think, she can just enjoy it. And that's what good leadership is in really any situation. You're freeing up the mental capacity of the people that you're leading. Now, a realistic note here, because I don't want to make this sound easier than it is. Leadership is a skill. It takes energy, it takes a bit of preparation, and you won't always get it right. You will make mistakes along the way. So you might need to protect a bit of your own time so that you have that headspace available. And most women will forgive small mistakes as long as you're generally leading without a problem. And habit 4 is to set and maintain your boundaries from the very start of the relationship. Now, obviously, this goes for anyone in the relationship. Boundaries matter for both people, and a healthy relationship requires both people to have and respect them. But with women specifically, respect and attraction are deeply connected. They pretty much go hand in hand, so this is extra important. We as men, we've got a bit of a habit sometimes, I think, of letting things slide just to keep the peace, and because we can't be bothered to argue. And while that does feel easier in the moment, I promise you it's not worth her respect for you being gradually eroded. The idea is to establish the boundary early, either before she's ever crossed it or the very first time that she crosses it. The more a boundary gets crossed and you don't say anything, the less meaningful that boundary becomes, and the more unreasonable you look when you decide to enforce it later on, because she's going to think, well, I did this thing 100 times before and you never had a problem, so why now? But when you do address something and you do set a boundary, you never do so in anger, it's never an emotional outburst, it's just stated as fact. And the way that you can state your boundaries as fact as a man is that you're genuinely willing to walk away from any relationship with someone who won't respect them. But that's a video for another day. And the fifth habit is knowing when you're right and having the wisdom and honesty to admit when you're wrong. Conflicts will happen in any relationship, and how you handle that, of course, matters. When you're wrong, acknowledge it, apologize, mean it. That's straightforward. When you're right, it's a little more difficult. You can validate her feelings, you can understand how she got there or why she sees it that way, but don't tell her she's right if she isn't, and don't apologize for something that you genuinely don't believe you did wrong. And that is just boundary setting in a different form. You're living in accordance with your values, and that's super important. Now, a caveat here, and this is the honest version people won't tell you, the one secret women won't tell you. If you had to choose between being the guy who's stubborn with a thick skull and never admits he's wrong, versus a guy who always apologizes and lets people walk all over him, from a pure attraction standpoint, it's better to be the stubborn, unreasonable one. Yes, that stubborn guy can be annoying and frustrating. He could potentially look a little unaware or a bit immature, but there is nothing worse for attraction than a man who can be pushed around. So the ideal, obviously, is neither. You want to be the man who can't be pushed around, but also has the awareness and the wisdom to admit and course correct when he's wrong. That's the best. And then just below that would be the thick-headed, stubborn guy. And then the pushover will be way down here. So to bring it all together, keep being that charming, confident man that she met, while always improving your capability as a man. Lead by default as much as you can manage. Set your boundaries early and hold them. And have the wisdom and honesty to admit when you're wrong, and the courage to stand firm when you're right. Maintaining attraction is so much easier than rebuilding it. So if you're in the early stages of a relationship, these habits are your best investment. And if you'd like some personalized help with your specific situation, there's a link in the description to book a free call with me, and we can go through that together. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.